Evening, everyone. We're now ready to begin this special board meeting for the Florida Economic Development Corporation. If we could have a roll call, please. Here.
Beverly Raymond,
Here.
Christopher Smith,
Here.
Rashad Harris, Kaprina Frank, Jerry LeBeau, Rhonda Connor. Here. You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to ask Ms. Frank if she would give us our invocation, please.
Gracious Father in heaven, we come before you thanking you, God, for all your many blessings and choices that you bestowed upon us, God. God, let the words of our heart and the meditation of our sight be acceptable in your sight, O Heavenly Father, our Lord and our Redeemer. In this wax in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so this special board meeting is to hear from the candidates for the position of PAEDC CEO. And we are excited they were able to make it down today to give us these presentations. I know listed here, we have item 1 and 2 separated, but for consideration, what we will do is we will allow the first candidate to come and make their presentation, and then we will ask that candidate whatever questions we have for them at that particular time, and then we will move to the next candidate instead of breaking that up, if that's okay with everyone. Our first candidate is Ms. Bakita Hernandez-Smith. Good evening.
So first off, my name is Bigita Hernandez. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Okay, so first off, hi everyone. My name is Bigita Hernandez-Smith. I thank you very much for having me. After the first meeting, I was called the very next day to be a finalist, and that means a lot. I met the majority of you during that first interview, but I just want to reiterate the fact that I'm a New York native, but I have lived 8 years in this area, and it has been a blessing to me and my family. So to be able to be considered as a finalist, to be the head of an organization that I admire so much is truly a blessing to me. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Just a little bit about me. I have over 15 years experience in workforce and economic development. I am originally from New York, so I build workforce and development systems in New York, working for Mayor Bloomberg as well as Mayor de Blasio. I then went on to manage a national small business program headed by Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, where we invested $500 million into small businesses all over the country, with a focus on increasing revenue and creating new jobs. I've done work in the Houston Gulf region for the businesses, 26,000 businesses in the Houston Gulf region. And currently now, and I don't want to give you my entire resume, but currently now I am working in North Carolina and also Middle Tennessee as a consultant in workforce and economic development. So definitely a lot of experience, but I do think that in this position, in any position where you're working with communities, it's important to be an integral part of that community. So it's not about surface. You really have to be local to that community. You have to be able to contribute directly to that community on a regular basis. So I was really excited about the opportunity to give a pitch. So Joni said, Joni, what are the details? She's like, be as creative as possible. So I really had fun with it because I think as we can make it as concrete as possible, you can kind of understand how I would engage a conversation. So I am going to navigate this as best as I can. Okay. And do I have any time constraints? 15 minutes? Okay. So as the CEO of the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation, I am meeting with a previous client. Eric Weintop and team, they are the members of the Ruby Slipper Restaurant Group. When I was managing the Goldman Sachs National Program, we took small businesses around the country and we educated them. Because what we know about small businesses nationally is that small businesses, for the most part, have a passion about their product, but they need to understand the business fundamentals in order to be able to be successful. Our goal was to increase revenue, create new business, and create new jobs. So Ruby Slippers, I don't know if you guys are familiar, Ruby Slippers is a restaurant, it's a brunch restaurant in New Orleans, started in New Orleans. And the reason why I picked them is because twofold. One is after the wake of Hurricane Katrina, they created a brunch restaurant from a corner store. And I liked the model of being able to create something from scratch, being able to create something out of nothing. At this time, 2021, they have about 5 different restaurants in New Orleans and growing across the country. Similar to Port Arthur, they just opened up a restaurant in 2016 in Pensacola, Florida. Very similar to Port Arthur in that same population, same kind of small bedroom community, and they decided to go there. So I thought, because I would really love to speak to them about actually coming to Port Arthur and understanding why they were attracted to such a small community, because New Orleans is pretty big, and then they're in different kind of bigger cities. So they specialize in brunch, and so the whole idea, and also because they specialize in building businesses in the South. Their whole model is we do a Southern brunch. It's a little upscale. We have great craft cocktails. So I'm going to move on. So you guys are the Ruby Slipper Restaurant Group. Okay, so I want to just note the current trends in the U.S. economy amidst the pandemic. The pandemic has been absolutely awful. My condolences to everyone here who has lost a loved one. I think that we all have connected to someone who we lost in this pandemic. But if you look at our nation's history, it's oftentimes when we're in tragedy, do we have opportunities, and there's silver linings in that tragedy. The silver lining opportunity, if you will, is that we have a growing remote workforce. We have people moving, and so the reason why we have a growing remote workforce is because we were forced into a remote situation, a virtual situation, where organizations were contemplating this model, but didn't necessarily do it because they didn't feel like they could trust, and they didn't feel like the production was going to be as large. But we were forced into it. Hence, we figured out that it can be very successful. So we have a growing remote workforce. We have people moving from big cities to smaller cities. Why? Because they want a quality of life, and they don't necessarily have to have that job in the big city because they're working remotely, and perhaps a hybrid model where they're traveling back and forth. Restaurant groups and franchises are getting hit hard in bigger cities. They're getting hit hard because those cities are more dense. And so it's kind of attractive to go to a smaller city if they can capitalize on revenue and make sure that they're just as productive. It takes a little bit of nuancing, a little bit of finagling, but smaller cities are now attractive to them. E-commerce is growing rapidly. Everything that we can buy in a store now, we can buy online. And it was growing rapidly before the pandemic, and now it's just a matter of, quite frankly, today is Cyber Monday. I think there's so many people shopping more online than in stores. Traditional brick and mortars are going hybrid. Hybrid meaning that they may be still standing, but they're not utilizing as much space, and so part of their workforce is remote, part of their workforce is in person. And then broadband is a necessity. There is no city in our nation that doesn't realize that broadband is a necessity. We all must connect to the internet. Our students must connect to the internet. Our workforce must connect to the internet. Hence, President Biden's new infrastructure bill that contributes at least $1.4 trillion, but $1 billion towards broadband across our country. So those are just things to think about amidst the pandemic. Opportunity knocks for investors in a different way. So the investor today has to think a little bit more shrewd, a little bit more creative. Investors should anticipate a higher demand for their products or service in non-traditional locations, smaller cities. Investors can save on cheaper real estate and better incentives by investing in small cities. Again, investors go to big cities because they can rely on a bigger workforce. But if workforce in the future is going to be predominantly or a significant amount remote, they can go to those smaller cities and they can save a lot of money. Investors can anticipate a higher return on investment due to increase in e-commerce business, and investors can better rely on infrastructure in smaller cities because broadband and internet connectivity is now a national necessity. Our leaders have no choice but to invest in broadband and make sure that we all can be connected. Little history, you guys, on Port Arthur. So history, Port Arthur was settled in 1900. Population, approximately 55,000, and has been on the decline since 1980. In the midst of that, it's a world-class Texas port we have a world-class Texas port reaching global markets, home to the biggest oil refinery, so we have a tremendous resource, mecca of the petrochemical industry, one of the most diverse cities, and at one time, downtown was the vital heart of the city. So we ask, why hasn't this city grown? Why haven't we utilized our resources and utilized our people to grow our city? And so I'll tell you that the future, and it's very obvious having spoken to the majority of you, our future is we have no choice but to get out of our own way, increase our population, increase jobs in oil and gas, and not only increase jobs, but make sure that those who come here and utilize our resources, they're actually giving us jobs. So what I found, and I work with, I worked on the 313 agreements in terms of like the workforce agreements when organizations get incentives. And so for the most part, we found that there's not a lot of oversight. And it's different in different cities in this area. I was listening to your last board meeting, and it was very pleasing to the ear to see that you guys actually go through organizations who you've given incentives to and recognize how many jobs that they are delivering. I can't say that every city in Southeast Texas actually does the same, but that's phenomenal, because we need to make sure that as we present and give our resources, that we get something in return, which means our local economy, our local workforce gains benefits. Diversification of industry. So while we are the petrochemical mecca of the world, if you will, we need to diversify industry. Why? Because our children are not only interested in oil and gas. We have great opportunity there, but in order to keep them here, in order to maintain our population and increase it, we must offer different types of jobs. And then I wanted to compare and contrast. Port Arthur has always been a diverse melting pot. However, I can't say that Port Arthur has always embraced that. And so I think that we're in a place that we embrace our differences. We embrace the fact that we are 38% African American, 31% Hispanic of all types, 18% Caucasian, and 8% Asian. It's very obvious that we are proud of our diversity today, and we see it as a strength. Versus back in the day when downtown was vital, there was fleet. Because, I mean, let's be for real, I will call a spade, and I will speak about the elephant in the room. There were desegregation laws down at that point. There was more diversity happening, and so people fled. But at this point in time, we embrace it because we know it's a strength. Our differences are our strength. Why Port Arthur? So, experienced leaders at the helm with a growth mindset. So I can say that it was so great to speak to everyone that I did 2 weeks ago to talk about the fact that we need to grow. We want to grow. Every government entity, every EDC does not have that same vision. And so it's time. We love our city, but it's time for us to grow. I heard the words, we need to get out of our own way. We need to be able to grow, and we need to have experienced leaders at the forefront. And so as I'm speaking to you, the owners of the restaurant group, I am an experienced leader at the forefront. all of you guys are experienced leaders at the forefront. And it's important to understand what kind of experience you value, because we can't be afraid of something different. If we want to do something different, we can't be afraid of something different. So as you know, having built these kind of programs, having been successful in all different areas of our country, please don't think that that's a threat, but please embrace it, because that has been done before and it can be done again. Efficient navigation of organized government, downtown revitalization in motion. Kudos to Port Arthur. Quite frankly, I'm going to call it out. I do not see the same type of growth, the same type of mindset in Beaumont, Texas. And Port Arthur is significantly smaller, yet there's an orchestrated plan for downtown revitalization. You have your community and business development programs. You have the phenomenal press building coming, the business park. These are it's obvious that you guys are forward-minding thinkers and not afraid of the growth that's to come. We have a growing college residential and commuter population. We have workforce programs connected to high school and college. Workforce programs in this time is so important because everyone is not inclined to a 4-year or 2-year degree, and certifications are very important and can create a sustainable and quality life. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Port Arthur is a diverse bedroom community. I say I'm from New York City, but I'm from Staten Island. Similar bedroom community. We love each other, we support each other, we're there for each other. And that's something special. And if we could all be able to come together and support each other, we have a thriving city with a low cost of living and quality of life. Okay, I just want to be cognizant towards time. Okay, so a 10-year plan. So anytime that you're presenting to an investor, you want to give some type of plan and you want to show that we have vision. So in the first 1 to 5 years of this restaurant coming to Port Arthur, we are going to be doing a national marketing and sales campaign. It is important. We have to get in front of ourselves. It is important that we talk about our city. Our city's not perfect, but there's plenty to talk about. There's plenty to uplift, and the nation needs to know it. There's investors around the entire nation who are looking for that niche market, who is looking for that niche place where they can really capitalize on their investment. An 8% increase in population. An 8% increase in population. So the last time that we increased our population was around 1980, and it was 6%. So I'm saying 8% if we have our eyes on it in the 1 to 5 years. Unemployment rate. We are at a 9.1 unemployment rate. We have to understand why that is, and we have to get ourselves as close as possible to the national average, which is more like 4.2. We have downtown housing. So again, forward-minded thinking. We have downtown housing, the Renaissance downtown housing, which would be complete in the first 1 to 5 years. I would say we should have 5 new downtown businesses. I see a lot happening in Port Arthur. We have Jimmy Johnson Boulevard, and there's so much going on there, but I think any heart of a city should be its downtown, and that's where there's opportunity, and that's where we really need to ignite growth. So in the first 5 years, 5 new downtown businesses, successful and profiting. Approximately, we always have to make sure that we have an understanding of how many new jobs comes with those businesses. 70% occupancy of the business park, 20 entrepreneurial business established throughout PA, and receiving financing and education, financing and mentorship. So I'm just gonna go, so as you can see, there's integral growth here. We have our first 5 years, we have our 6 to 10 years, we have our 10 years plus, all in the same categories of we need to continue marketing, we need to increase our population, we need to better our unemployment rate, we need to increase housing, and we need to make sure that we attract more businesses and more people to our city. So our ask from Ruby Slipper Restaurant Group. So we would like, I know that the press building, there's space allocated for a restaurant. So I think that it would be phenomenal for Ruby Slipper to come and build out their signature brunch restaurant in the press building. Additionally, if we think about Lamar State College, Port Arthur, there is no convening of students. There is no kind of place outside of their cafeteria for them to congregate, for them to do peer-to-peer mentorship with each other, for them to have coffee. I think it would be great if we were able to build a different model for Ruby Slipper that is inclined to college towns. That would be, our Port Arthur would be the first, and they can replicate that, and we can see how it can become successful. In addition, I think that it's very important, regardless of the fact that we want to attract businesses here, we're not beggars. We don't need to attract any business. We need to attract the right business. And the right business is a business that cares about our community, that's going to invest in our community and understands our community. So anytime that I'm pitching to a business, it's always a community part. What are you going to give above and beyond being present? And that's a mentorship program. I think that it would be phenomenal. We have a new culinary arts program with Lamar State Port Arthur. If we were able to connect experts from Ruby Slipper to be mentors to these graduates with an end result of placement and or a hybrid e-commerce business. We always have to make sure that anytime, at this point in time, when we mentor people to be entrepreneurs, there's always a piece of e-commerce, because that is not going away. We need to be able to sell electronically, and we need to be able to sell in person. And then what I would like to see is a partnership with the Southeast Texas Food Bank, where we're utilizing restaurant surplus. We have so many restaurants. Am I at time? Okay. Okay, I'm wrapping up. And we are utilizing restaurant surplus in order to give back to those that are hungry in our city, that are in need in our city. Okay, so I just wanted to mention real quick a return on investment. The average return on investment for a 400K investment is usually nationally 15% after 3 to 5 years. We are pitching, because money talks, we are pitching 20% in 2 years, because we have a growth plan in place, because we have our eyes on this. And then our next steps. So our next steps would be a tour of Port Arthur in the downtown district, and all interested facilities. We want this organization to buy in. Also, we want to have a meet and greet. So I'm presenting to you, but there's nothing like speaking to you. There's nothing like understanding what your vision is. And then I think would be very powerful to have a focus group of diverse small businesses, large businesses, so that this investor can come and sit and say, what's the secret to your success? Why are you here? Why have you been here for so long? So that is the gist of my presentation. Thank you so much. Questions, please.
At this time, thank you for your presentation. We have a list of questions that has been presented to each board member. If anyone would like to ask Ms. Hernandez Smith any question, this is the time to do so. I know a few of you hadn't had a chance to speak with her or hear from her. So, all of you have any other question that you want to ask?
Okay. I heard you speak on diversifying the industry. Exactly how would you do that? What was your plan would be to diversify the industry here in Port Arthur?
Well, in order for industry to exist and to have a presence, we need to make sure that that industry is supported. So it's a matter of understanding. It's a matter of understanding and going to our pipeline, which is our high schools and our colleges. What are students focused on? What are our transient students who are coming in from other cities? What are they focused on? And building a model for that. Maritime is phenomenal. Technology is not going anyplace. So technology security is phenomenal. But again, we need to make sure that we match the workforce to the industry so that the industry can be successful.
Other question? Go ahead. Anybody else? Okay, I guess me and Ms. Connors on the one. Okay. Another thing that's very, very important. How would you build your team into a high-performance team?
So I build all my teams with a standard of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
I say often, if you don't put your head on the pillow at night and proud of the work that you do, then you shouldn't. Then you didn't do enough. And so that standard of excellence is important. And what I have to balance is, it's important that a leader is cordial with their team can present to them challenges, communicate. with their team, understand the differences in their team members and their strengths. But it's also important that we hold a high standard, that we measure, that we understand that if we set a vision, that vision needs to be measured, that deadlines have to be met. So it's a balance of being able to be that servant leader, but also that leader who is going to be able to make sure that things are executed and the actual work gets done.
If that doesn't happen, what would be the recourse? Would you coach
Sure.
them
So,
to get to where they need to be?
yeah, yes, it's a conversation. So it's sometimes people apply for positions and get positions that are not necessarily the great fit. It doesn't really allow their talents to thrive. So it's a matter of understanding what's happening. When I build a team, so if I'm building a team from scratch, work ethic is huge because you can train a lot of people to do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, what are you doing when no one's looking? Are you able to still be able to perform without having to perform for someone because you're in it for the right reasons? So having those conversations, and of course coaching, it's important because a lot of people are afraid of communicating that they can't or communicating that something's hard for them. So that's why I'm saying having that open door to say you can bring, we're not perfect. There's many challenges that I still experience. It's all about being able to communicate them and being able to see if I can coach through or if something needs to be changed. Or, quite frankly, and I'm not afraid to say it, if that person doesn't belong in the organization. These things happen. And so we want to make sure that we position things right. That's going to help the organization thrive and help that individual thrive. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, another thing too is very important to me and to is the youth development. Okay, we have a lot going on, different programs here. We have a good team here at EDC. What would you do to enhance our youth development?
I think I'd like to see a youth mentor program here at the EDC. Economic development, when you utilize those terms with young people, they don't necessarily know exactly what that is. I think it's very powerful. I think that relationship building is huge in economic development, to build relationships, to be able to communicate. And so many children have those talents, but they don't know where to contribute them to. So I would love to see like a mentorship program or a junior EDC program where the different parts of the EDC are mimicked by students so that they can walk through and they can shadow and see exactly what this is like. It's important for us to be able to provide our students opportunity beyond beyond what they just see. You can do so much, and there's such a gamut of things that your talents to contribute to. It's up to us as professionals to be able to show them that, to be able to introduce that to them. I think of Judge Collins and Judge Naomi, who are in Beaumont, who they have a similar model where, usually when you see a courtroom, youth may get intimidated, but to be able to touch and feel that courtroom, this is some place that I'm able to communicate and I'm able to see my peers in, that makes things less intimidating and more accommodating and more open for them to entertain as professions.
Thank you.
And I think the more we do that, we speak about this all the time, the more that we can get our youth busy and interested, the more that we can get them from being idle, which we all know what happens when you're idle. You're getting into trouble, hence crime, and so on.
You're correct. Mm-hmm. Thank you for answering my questions.
And just one thing, I'll mention one thing to connect to that, just to talk about why I came to Southeast Texas. I was a single mother of 3 boys. And so while New York City was too much, it was too big of a city for them. And so it was important for me to get them out of a place that was so familiar. And now I have a son who's a sheriff deputy who's on the SWAT team. I have a son who's a local barber, and I have a son who's in barber school, and they are going to open up their own shop. It's a matter of understanding where they are and not turning a blind eye and putting a focus onto something productive, and that may mean making big decisions and taking them out of their comfort zone.
One more question I noticed on your resume. You did a lot of moving around, I guess to better educate yourself and of course, probably income. What reason I see you've been on some jobs 2 years, 3 years. Exactly what occurred to cause you to move around?
So I think
positions?
our generation is more inclined to be able to grow quicker. I think the workforce grows quicker. And there were opportunities that were set forth to me that were undeniable. So if you look at my resume, you'll see that I was with the Department of Small Business Services, where I really built my career in economic and workforce development. So you'll see two-year jobs within the same agency. So I just want to make that clear. That was in the same governmental agency. And then when I decided to move to Southeast Texas, I was given the opportunity to run a national program. And I mean, it was me being able to bring my children here so that they can unite with their father. And so I was no longer a traditional single mom while having the opportunity of a lifetime managing a national program. And so I'm trying to understand where, so it comes from a place of concern, I would say, because you're trying to understand, like, are you going to be committed to the position? So one of the things that I've shared with the group that I talked with 2 weeks ago is that I am consulting, and workforce development nationally and economic development is my passion. However, my children are here, my grandchildren are here, my husband's here, my parents are here. It will mean so much to me to be able to contribute directly to my community, because I can see I can directly see those fruits reap. Not to say that I'm not happy with the work that I'm doing here, but it would be tremendous. It would mean a lot, because I truly believe that God positions us where he wants us to be. And so all the experience that you see on that, to me, was for a time and a place in Southeast Texas.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Ms. Paquita, thank you so very much for your presentation.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. You are free to go or stay. It's up to you. I mean, as far as you've already answered the question, so it's not like you're gonna be able to come back up and re-answer them. So if you want to hang out, you can. It's fine. Doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. We won't call you back up for any other questions. So you're fine. Okay. At this time, we'll have Mr. Larry Calhoun. Okay.
Well, I've had my nap, I'm ready. First of all, let me say that we're going to approach this as if you're CEOs of a company and I'm talking to you. And I don't do structured presentations. I don't show you stuff that you could glean off of a website, because you wouldn't remember it 5 minutes later anyway. I talk about Texas and Port Arthur and interchange the two because it's important to do so. So let's assume that you're a pipe manufacturer and we've brought you here. There are 3 cities. You're looking at a city in Florida, one in Louisiana, one in Texas, being Port Arthur. And why should you be here? Well, there are a myriad number of reasons, but let's talk about the state first. In the state of Texas, there are 2 funds, a deal closing fund and another fund that rebates sales tax that you can utilize. They'll bring you a great deal of money. Secondly, there's a Freeport Exemption. And what that means is, if you have product, and I know you happen to have a plant in South America, and you're bringing in some finished product, and you're going to ship it out to one of your other consumers, as long as you don't hold it over 175 days, you're not going to be charged inventory tax. You can bring it in the warehouse, store it, as long as you ship it out to another state. So those things are extremely important. Also, the Texas Workforce Commission has a program where they will train your employees and provide a tax credit to the company for $1,000 for each employee that you train. Now, I know that the unemployment rate in Port Arthur is about 10.4%, about 8.8% in the Beaumont region. And some people think that's a little high, but that's actually a plus, because that means you've got the skilled labor that was put out of work because of COVID that's now ready to go back to work that can fill your positions. Other things to talk about are infrastructure. State of Texas has over 70,000 miles of roads. They all lead somewhere. If you want to take product and you want to give it to a customer in Canada all the way up to Yukon, or go down to South America and transport it by chassis, then you can do that. Or you can put it on one of the railroads that run through here. And because we're equidistant between the two coasts, if you're supplying customers on the East Coast and the West Coast, you're going to be able to supply them from here with a much more efficient cost than doing it if you were, say, in Florida, running all the way over to the other coast and coming back deadheading. So the big point here is that with a place like Port Arthur, you've got the port. You can ship all your raw ingredients or your milled products that you already are doing in your other plant up and come to the port here, and can come from the ocean to transit within 2 hours. You can't do that anyplace else in the United States, not on the East Coast or the West Coast. So that's a real plus for Port Arthur. We don't have the congestion. You don't see ships setting out in the ocean at a cost of $100,000 a day waiting to be unloaded. And especially because this place is geared for commodity and commodity transfer and moving things by chassis. Or, you can come in, offload at the port, go directly to your customers and bypass any warehousing. So those things are important. The other top things that every CEO looks for, and I know this, is cost of operations. Well, you've got the infrastructure here. You've got water, which is extremely important in the United States now. The cost is skyrocketing because there's subsidence and aquifers are drying up. And Texas, it's really a problem, but the cost here is still reasonable, and the water is plentiful. And being a heavy water user in your manufacturing process, we have the water that's available for you to utilize. The electrical cost here on average is probably 25% less than any major city in the state of Texas. So that's a real plus for you. Wages. Now, you have to pay a livable wage. We want you to be a good corporate citizen, but at the same time, if you look at and do a comparison of the other places you're looking, you're going to find that the wages are a little bit less. But we want to pay good benefits, because it's important to increase the educational opportunities in this city, to bring the kids back that would normally leave and go someplace else after college. We want a vibrant future for the city, and you can be our corporate partner in achieving that. Also, regulations. I'll give you an example. I did an acquisition for a facility in Florida. There were, by the way, I hate the big rat with the ears. I like Disney World, but never was fond of that. But anyway, they had regulations that were so intrusive that we had to hire a environmental scientist at $75,000 as a consultant just to file the regulatory paperwork. You won't find that in Texas. Not that we don't care about the environment. It's just we're not crazy like some other places. And then I know you're looking at Louisiana, well, you got a state income tax there. We don't have that, never will. That's I can assure you that this state will never pass a state income tax. Thank God. But anyway, that is discretionary money that each of your employees has to buy a house, to send their kids to school, to buy retail things, and that's important. And they're happy. If they're happy, they're more productive, and they're going to help you achieve your goals, which is to sell more product, increase the bottom line, and be a more profitable company. So all those things, they meld into the final thing that I think is important, and that's quality of life. Quality of life here, you're on the coast. I mean, there's not a better place to be when you're close to water. The opportunities, the fishing opportunities, the boating, all the things that are out there that are available to you. You're also close, relatively close to the city of Houston, which has some great artistic places to visit, a lot of attractions. And also, I think that Port Arthur has gotten an unfair rap, and in a lot of ways. I read some things, and before I came here, and what was interested me is that people had a preconceived notion. And I know where I'm from, I used to have preconceived notions. There was an east side of the railroad track that was blighted, and I was with a developer one time showing him some property. He said, let's go over there and look. I said, you can't go over there. You're not going to buy that. That's a blighted area. He said, no, you're exactly wrong. I can get the land there at a much less expensive rate. I can build something and improve the area, and I can get grants by transportation. And I learned a lot about transportation at that point. You can go in, for example, with your bus system. I used to sit on the board in Houston of the HGAC on the Transportation Policy Council, and you can implement in your bus system a grant that goes down and where your terminal is and where your pickup stations are. All that area is available for grants that you can put in there to do sidewalks, lighting, pavers, underground utilities, all sorts of things that help the area, and it no longer is a blighted area. And when you start to help one area, you create a better environment for that to expand exponentially to create better areas. So those are the things that I think that are important of why you should come to Port Arthur. The other thing being that if you look around the room, you'll see we've got the fire chief, city council, members of the Industrial Development Board, and all the people in this room that can answer the questions that you have before you leave here. And that's extremely important because I know we've got one shot of talking to you. And so we want you to get every question answered. We want you to make your decision fully armed with all the information we've got to you. So I think that's what you need to do. Look at everything I've outlined, look at everything off our site, and let me take you on a tour tomorrow and show you all the great things about this city.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. At this time, we have any questions for Mr. Calhoun?
Yes. My question to you is, you brought up a very good point, and I was actually talking about this topic the other day. That was $380 billion of cargo going from California to Florida and bypassing Texas. And we have feeders going into every direction to include right down the middle of the United States. When you look at the challenges that we have in Port Arthur, what would you do to socialize, communicate, and evangelize the importance of our port for use, and what will be the challenges for us to have that cargo come through us instead of going to Florida to make its way back to the north and the east side of the United States? What would you do different?
Well, primarily what happens, the first thing that happens in the state of Texas is any company that's looking here, whether they're international in scope or they're domestic, they're going to go through the governor's office in Austin. I'm fortunate that I know all those people. I traveled with Governor Perry. For 4 years, we led the United States in foreign direct investment and new business recruitment. when you get they send out either the site selector, the corporate real estate manager, or the CEO themselves will send to the state a form, and they give a location of where they want to look. Now, it may be 3 cities in Texas, or it may be a geographic region from, say, Austin to Houston, but they're very specific in what they do. But what you have to do in that is extremely important, number one, that every piece of information is on the website. And the best investment you can make is the website that you put up. And if it's not where it should be, spending $50,000 on a website will pay for itself 10 times over. Secondly, social media. You've got to engage in social media because the CEOs of today are like Mark Zuckerberg. They're all out there and they're all working on the computer, and they don't want to talk to you. They want to know everything about you before they ever make a call. So getting that form from the state, meeting all the criteria that they send out, and making sure that it's sent back to them in the proper forms, that's extremely important. Advertising, targeted advertising is extremely important. You got your website, but Site Selector magazine is a good example. It's the best. I've closed 4 deals off of that magazine just from an ad. And then being part of the governor's, there are 2 groups that you can get involved with, Team Texas and what used to be Texas One, but now they call it something different. But you go to meet with site selectors or with CEOs in different places, and it's not a wasted effort because you get known. And getting known is extremely important. I mean, I know where Port Arthur is, but I assure you that if you're not from here, from this state, there are very few people who probably do. And that's not an indictment of anything other than to say that it's a matter of marketing. Marketing in this job makes a difference between you keeping a job and not keeping a job, if you want to know the truth. Because if you don't close deals and you don't deliver, you don't need me, At some point, and it doesn't happen overnight, now we'll tell you that, but being proactive and doing things that are needed and understanding what's needed is important, and I do understand all those things.
Any other questions?
That it?
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
All right, our last presentation will come from Ms. Jessica Carpenter.
Hello.
Good evening.
Well, I first would like to say thank you so much for having me here this evening. It is truly an honor and a pleasure. My name is Jessica Carpenter, and where would you like me to begin? Would you like me to preface with some background?
You can give a little information about yourself for those that were not here, and then go straight into your presentation.
Excellent. Well, I currently serve as the Economic Development Director for the City of Port Lavaca, but it's really development services because that includes economic development, planning.
Let's move the mic so we can hear you just a little
Absolutely.
better. Thank
Generally,
you so
my voice
much.
carries pretty well. I'm trying to be a little softer. Okay, there you go. So that includes economic development, planning, building, code enforcement, permitting, environmental, you name it, I'm doing it, which is encompassing pretty much all of Calhoun County for economic development because it just hasn't been done before. And now we are currently working with our port because we have an incredible investment with Max Midstream coming on. The Army Corps of Engineers is dredging all the way from the Port O'Connor at the mouth of the channel all the way up to Point Comfort, which is all of Calhoun County. And they are deepening and widening our port in order for Max Midstream to expand our port to become a part of it to be a refueling port. And they are also going to put a smaller tank farm. I've worked in Midland, and tank farms are small in comparison to unless you live in the Permian Basin. So a smaller tank farm from their Edna tank farm. And so we are currently working in conjunction with the judge of Calhoun County, Judge Meyer. I've been meeting with actually Victoria Mayer and the new Economic Development Director, Jonas. So that's been a great adventure we've been on because it just hasn't been done before in all of Calhoun County. And that was actually why they asked me if I would be interested in coming on from my vast experience working at DOTs and large cities and counties, to see if I could build a department for them and build it countywide, build it regionally. There's no more silos. We want to do economic development from a large regional scope in the Crossroads area. And we want to make this really translatable in the future as well. So that's what I'm currently doing. We could go back 20 years, but I don't think anybody wants to hear that. Any questions? Okay, so what I prepared for you today is just a slide. I was really, really impressed with most of the information. There was just an abundance. I can't thank you enough for having data. I am currently contracting Buxton to provide us such data. It's real-time data though now, so I'm big into tech. I'm big into data analytics. I love tools to help you do the job. And in our jobs, it's fundamental practice that we must work within our constraints, our fiduciary responsibilities, and the data now, the tech now provides us our gaps, it provides us our growth measures, and it provides a profile to prospectors. So it really helps us. And thank you, because it was all there. It's pretty recent. It's 1819. So I wouldn't think that a whole lot of numbers have changed. So from my perspective, when I am soliciting for developers, prospective investors, I look at a profile of a matrices, basically. What are they looking for? And I've done this many times over in my positions. I've retained Buxton for the third time now. I've solicited at the retail conference in Las Vegas. I've done ecotourism, industrial, oil and gas, all sorts of Amazons. I've done several Amazon distribution centers. So you need to understand what they need. Their need is the optimum location, prime real estate, in that optimum location. The economic overview has to be there for them. There's matrices that they need to go by. Of course, taxes and tariffs, all of the things that need to be on the low cap end for them. That left side really is just a profile that they're looking for. If you don't meet or rank high enough on that, they're not even going to look at you. So then if you do rank high enough in that first column that they are interested, then they will come and ask you if we are looking at this prime piece of real estate, which is situated in accordance to good transportation, good location. So location is your key indicator factor right there. And as we know, Port Arthur is an incredible location in the Gulf Intercoastal Waterways. So it has the right depths, it's a great location, being you're already hitting high on all of the marks for interested investors. Then real estate. What do you have to offer in forms of real estate? Real estate needs to be, if it's a small developer, they might be looking for 3 or 10 acres. If it's a mid-size, they're looking for 10 to 30. And if it's a large size, they want 300. It just depends on what they're doing. If they need lay-down yards, if they need to be able to transition from chemical processing, time frame procurements we have for most of plastics out there. So a lot of their contracted services are chemical cleaning subcontractors. And what that means is that they have cold cleaning, that they use the products out there. They have to take those products back with them, and they have to store them properly because they're now hazardous materials. So there's staging on their site that they need to have, as with a lot of industrial uses. So real estate, in the form of what it's being used for, you have to have a good asset portfolio, and that's really important. So when I went through your properties, there actually is a really wonderful opportunity here that you have small lots, you have large lots. You want to make sure also what they're looking at. For example, Amazon. They want to be a certain radius to an interstate. They want to be a certain time frame to an international airport. And they want a rail line or a spur immediately accessible from their distribution center. So if you don't hit all of those with your property profiles, you don't mark high enough for attracting them. So that's something to take into consideration, because it does have some of the key indicators when you look at those properties, but literally each one should maybe have a couple bullet points of just literally where your transportation indicators are. So Prospective Properties, ideal location again, 10 miles from the Port of Port Arthur. That's incredible. 300 acres ready to develop. Does that mean the infrastructure is there for a large capacity facility? I do development services. I have done building and planning for over 20 years in addition to economic development. If you don't have infrastructure, what is their number one cost? Infrastructure. So saying you have 300 acres ready to develop, does that mean it has the capacity for that load, for not just your on-ground for transportation, but your underground? Is it able to serve 3,000 employees? Are your lines upgraded? Will you have to make improvements? Who's going to bear the burden of the infrastructure cost? The developer or us? That's where our agreements come in, right? So you have a lot of key good profile points there. So for sure, I chose the Spur 93 Business Park because it gives you the myriad of everything. You have your 4-acre, you have your 38-acre, you have established businesses of a commercial industrial type in there. That is a huge draw. The ring road is complete. That's another big factor on industrial parks, is if it's a completed ring road, good access. That's imperative. I watched the video on the TxDOT partnership of their maritime division, and I was really impressed that they're doing so many access improvements. That's incredible that that program is being so well funded right now. We've got to harness that, especially under the new Transportation Reform Act. We need to solicit that money. I write grants. I couldn't even tell you, billions of dollars in grants, because I worked at DOT and I was the executive finance manager for all of the highways projects, which is about $4 billion. Most of that came from the FAST Act, the federal grant funding. And then I was able to take that experience and move it around to local levels. Tiger grants, bike ped path grants. You want to make connectivity. It doesn't matter if it's industrial or commercial, or if it's residential and community park. You want connectivity on the ground. So utilizing your transportation grants is fundamental. This business park really stands out. It's got a complete ring road. It's got your internal road. It's got some established commercial, industrial in there. That right there is attractive to potential investors. So that's why I wanted to highlight this. It's really important to not just say, welcome more than 70, we've already welcomed 70 to 80 million in development there. It's to say, here's what we have. Here's our strengths. We have a complete ring road. Where's your access point to your state highway? You want to highlight those things. They're looking at an index and the matrices, the scatter on that. So this is why I chose that particular property, because it really is the standout of that the property portfolio listing. So, economic overview. This is paramount because who are you going to solicit to? We know by this economic overview, and of course where we are, that oil and gas and coal, huge. We know we already hit the high profile marks for that. We already know that we have the depth for that. We know that we have the capability to serve the large barge capacity for this major indicator here. The industry clusters tell you what you're doing well. But let me tell you, it's the 21st century. We have Samsung coming into Taylor, Texas. Tesla in the rural outskirts of the ETJ of Austin. You don't want to miss the opportunity that you have a pretty good point in that cluster of tech. This is EDC stuff. It doesn't have to be going on a barge anymore. We could be soliciting to Bitcoin miners who put up huge warehouses. So we want to highlight what we are doing well, for sure. But we also want to go after the smaller notes because they are becoming emerging markets in this day and age. So that's really important to have. And this is the same, just in a different format, your industry snapshot. And I would say, if you look at them, this is definitely your takeaway. Within 20 seconds, I can glean and solicit to somebody. I can speak on this platform in no time at all to a potential investor on where we have strengths, where we have weaknesses, and where we would like to try. But here, this is kind of an old-fashioned form of putting out your information model. So that was really why I wanted to show the industry snapshot and how we promote ourselves. But I do believe that the data is there, and it's, tremendous. I can't speak enough, as you can see. I cited every source, and I also put the branding on each page from where I cited those sources. Branding is paramount. That is everything in who you are and what you do is your branding. So something to think about as we go through is to continuously see the theme. It switches back and forth of where I took source information from. Tax structuring, we all know that's huge for us to have at the negotiating table for incentivizing. Unfortunately, we also know ports don't have a lot to work with. We're not the big players like the school districts are and the county. I too am in the same boat in Port Lavaca with the city. We're not a big player. So the school district obviously is, and that's very much important. What you need to do is get creative. So I'm currently working on 380 agreements. I'm doing a 378 agreement. It's a neighborhood empowerment zone. Doing the first one. I also just completed a training on Chapter 399, and it's fairly new. It's called PACE funding, and it's brought to the table by the developer. It's incredible. So there's a lot to work within the limited tax incentives. Sometimes instead of abatements, we're doing rebates over long periods of time. So it's not just a complete cut, excuse me. So there's a lot to work with in your tax models, and it's something I'm really proud of because Port Lavaca really hasn't done a whole lot of 380 agreements lately. I think they did, I don't know, about 10 or 12 years ago with a former city manager, but it's really kind of gone dry since then. So I'm bringing that back to life. I think I have three 380s, one 378, and one 399, which is that PACE funding. And I tell you, I just want to share this with everyone. So Dub is leading the PACE Authority. It's paceauthority.org, or it's Texas PACE. I can send it to y'all. And he worked with his whole career was Texas Energy, the Texas Energy Commission. And he is so passionate about this new PACE funding. It is clean energy. It is promoting to improve your water lines. It is promoting solar. It is promoting and incentivizing on the developer side of the table that if they install a solar farm or windmills or improve the water lines, PACE funding is there for them. We don't have to do it. They bring it to us. I'm passing a resolution December 13th at City Council that the city will approve the PACE funding program. And it's incredible. So there's a lot to work within that tax structuring. It's not just about abatements anymore. We have to get creative. We have to think outside of the box when we are on the cusp of attracting a developer. Because we might hit high in some categories, we might be mediocre in some others, and we might not be on their radar in some. But if we put the right incentive package together, we can make a difference. With that being said, the tariffs really are a little bit different than what we're talking about here tonight. We are talking about soliciting developers and getting them in the door for infrastructure development, putting buildings on the ground, creating revenue, sales tax dollars, long-term benefits. So we'll leave that to the port channels. Incentives. So again, this is that conversation that you really do. You have opportunities here. These are great incentives. I think that job creation incentives, that's an element I was really impressed with. And we will talk about that a little bit later on as your workforce development and training programs. But that's what I see mostly here. I see a lot of that workforce development. Not that it's not important, don't get me wrong. We want to focus and harness that. But that's after you get them in. That is not what they're looking at you for right now. And I can tell you from experience, we have Formosa Plastics in Point Comfort. And with Buxton data, it tells us our workforce is from the Valley and Harris County. They are not local. And Formosa goes to great lengths with these programs to train, to certify, to recertify, to promote, to give them legacy pathway planning of succession in their careers. Great jobs, excellent pay. But they're not our residents. And what they're doing to our housing demand models is completely skewing everything. I live in Victoria because I couldn't afford rent in Port Lavaca. They're renting by the room. So you're getting $3,000 a month for a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom home. You're not alluring families. You're not building communities. So you got to be careful on what you're doing with your workforce opportunities. You want your workforce to be your residents. You want your workforce to be your constituents. Our census, our numbers went down. Sorry.
Just wanted to mention your 15 minutes has expired if you would.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So all in all, it really is just a matter of you have great assets, you have great profiles. Your multimodal gateway is excellent. There is a lot of really good data there. And let me tell you, when I'm soliciting, I want that data. They want to know the good, the really good, and this is really good data. Your terminal statistics. Your business park, excellent data. So how quickly your barge shipping routes are, those are excellent. Some times on those might be good. What are your averages to certain destinations? Because turnaround time on getting their material out is fundamental and paramount. And of course, that's rail, which is not exactly something we can control. And this was really enticing to me, was to see that port access program. And I watched the video, and we were on there, Calhoun County, with our Max Midstream. They are doing over $1 billion investment in our port and the channel. They paid $320 million to the Corps of Engineers alone. So it's a big project. Workforce and training. Again, you have incredible programs, opportunities, grants, but really want to harness. We want to solicit to investors that our workforce are our residents, that they're your constituents, that they're not going to be from Louisiana, and they're not going to be from the Valley, because you want to build community. The executives want to live in this community. Their children want to grow up in this community. They want to employ your people. They really do. So that's something just to be mindful of when you're soliciting. And workforce is integral because it's the future. And if we don't start investing in our workforce, as we can see what's going on today, it's only going to get worse. And I really am proud that as a leader, I work on mentorship. And I have staff scattered throughout the country after 20 years. I'm really proud of that. So the Port of Port Arthur welcomes your business with our inviting, business-friendly mission. And that's how we want to keep it. Any questions? I do apologize for going over.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter, for that excellent presentation. A question I have for you is, why do you want to work for our organization?
Well, I have always wanted to really hone in on the port economic development. And I'll tell you, I worked at DOT and I was on highways, and it was gratifying. It was great. DOTs are highway agencies, but our DOT also had ferry terminal ports. I moved on from that. So I launched technology across the state for our public portal for contractors, our legislative budgeting. It was all great. But I saw what they were doing on ports and rail side. And they were able to have a lot more fun because they had public-private partnerships. We didn't so much. What private partnership besides Amazon, we did have that, wants to invest in highways. No, that's government stuff. So then I moved on to a county up in Washington State, and we had 2 revenue ports and 2 ferry terminal ports. And I was this position for the whole county. And it was an incredible opportunity for me to collaborate. All I want to do is break down silos. We do not have EDCs here and county and school district 313s. We have regional economic development. And I see this area, I drove around here a lot today. Opportunity abound. And the port is the source point. And then it's going to go like this. So I would love to be here.
Thank you.
Other questions?
All right. Thank you, Jessica, for your time and your presentation.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Kaprina. Thank you, Jerry, Wanda. Thank you, staff. I really appreciate you coming. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one item on our non-consent agenda that we're moving to executive session. That's agenda item number 1. So at this time, a closed meeting or executive session will be held pursuant to the following sections of the Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, Section 072 and Section 074. We will now adjourn to executive session. A special board meeting for the PAEDC. May I have a roll call, please? Here.
Christopher Smith,
Here.
Rashard Harris, Caprina Frank, Jerry LeBeau, Rhonda Corner.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So coming out of executive session, we're going to take that non-consent agenda item number 1 to discuss for possible consideration approving a lease agreement with the City of Port Arthur for the Emergencies Operations Center at 549 4th Street. Mr. Davis.
Okay, let's see. Well, we reached out to, let's see what his exact title is, a certified general real estate appraiser to get fair market value. And what he explained was downtown, it's in a range of $1.15 to $1.35 per square foot. So, yes, so what we're gonna recommend is that we go with the $1.35 per square foot, and that's gonna include CAM. And that's basically our recommendation to the board, to go with the $1.35 a square foot.
Any questions? May I have a motion, please?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we move forward with the lease agreement for the EOC at 549 4th Street with the City of Port Arthur at the rate of $1.35 per square foot. Of course, pending the signatures from the chair and the city. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will now entertain, first of all, let me thank each and every one of you for coming out for this special meeting on today to handle this a very, very, very important matter of business that we have before us. I appreciate you volunteering a little more of your time to the City of Port Arthur. Now we will adjourn that all important motion to get out of here.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and second that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
See you all next week.